Welcome to this 2-hour business English masterclass. If you want to feel confident sharing your ideas in a meeting, going to a job interview, and taking your career to the next level, you're in the right place. By the end of this masterclass, you're going to expand your vocabulary, learn natural expressions, improve your grammar, and improve your pronunciation so you feel more confident and more fluent at work. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. First, you're going to learn 50 English phrases to help you sound professional at your next job interview. Now pay close attention because all of these phrases will really impress the interviewer and help you make sure that you get the job. Let's get started with the first question that you're going to be asked. Tell me about yourself. When you're asked this question, you absolutely must use the expression, I have more than, over, or almost 10 years of experience. And then you can add as a and your job title. As a project manager, as an accountant. Don't forget that article. It's very important that it's there before your job title. Now, you can also talk about your experience in a particular field. I have almost 20 years of experience in the project management industry. I have more than 15 years of experience in the IT sector. So you can use field, industry, or sector. Now notice you have more than or over. That's when the number is greater than. And then you have almost. That's when the number is less than. So if you actually have 13 or 14 years of experience, well, it sounds better to use a round number like 15. So you can say almost 15 years of experience if you have 13 or 14. Now, you can add to this and tell us more about your responsibilities in that role. So you can say, in this role, which is your role as a financial analyst, in this role, you could also say in that role, it doesn't matter, in that role, I was responsible for. Or you can say, I am responsible for, was if you're viewing the role as complete, and I am responsible for if you're currently doing that role. I was responsible for. Now after this, we need a gerund verb. So you can use many different verbs to talk about your experience. These are the most common verbs you can use. In this role, I was responsible for managing, overseeing, leading, coordinating, creating, developing, reviewing, improving, streamlining, and analyzing. Of course, you can use other verbs, but these are the most common. Now, streamlining, this means improving the efficiency or effectiveness. So as a financial analyst, you could say, I have over 20 years of experience as a financial analyst in the IT industry. In this role, I'm responsible for overseeing a team of 15 people, and I'm responsible for streamlining our operations. Now, in a job interview, you absolutely want to use more academic or formal adjectives. You don't want to say, I have a lot of experience. That doesn't sound very strong or convincing. It sounds a lot more impressive if you say, I have extensive experience. I have significant experience. So those are two must-know adjectives that you should use in job interviews. Extensive and significant, which simply is a more formal way of saying a lot of. I have significant experience, and again, after this, you need a gerund verb. You can use any of the verbs I've already shared, and of course, you'll have specific verbs for your industry and your specific job title. I have extensive experience creating international marketing campaigns for a variety of industries. Now, after this expression, I have significant, extensive experience, you could also use a noun. I have significant project management experience. I have significant financial analysis experience. So you don't have to use a gerund verb, you could also use a noun. If you're asked about your education or your credentials, you can simply say, I have a Bachelor of. I have a Bachelor of Science, a Bachelor of Arts, a Bachelor of Engineering, whatever that may be. Now, you can end it there, but you may also choose to identify the school and the year you graduated. Those aren't requirements, but if you went to a prestigious or well-known school, or you recently graduated, those might be useful details to include. I have a Bachelor of Science from Cornell. I graduated in 2020. You could also use the verbs received or obtained, which are more formal than have. However, it's extremely common to use the verb have. I have a bachelor, I have a master, but you can absolutely use received or obtained to use the more formal version. I received my Master of Education from Cornell in 2020. I obtained my Master of Engineering from MIT in 2019. If your credential is a certification, you can use the verbs I received, I completed, or I obtained. I completed my PMP in 2019. Now notice here I use an acronym, PMP. If I'm applying for a job in the project management industry, they know what a PMP is. It's the most prestigious certification in the industry. It stands for Project Management Professional. So there's no need to identify an acronym if that acronym is well known in your specific industry. Let's talk about your personal strengths. The interviewer is likely going to ask you, what are your strengths? What would you say are your 3 best qualities? So here you can use a transition word. As for my strengths, that's just to introduce the point. As for my strengths, I'm extremely, and then you can list the quality. Now notice here I use the adjective extremely. This is a more convincing adjective than I'm really or very. You want to avoid those common adjectives because they don't stand out, and it's way more convincing to use a stronger adjective in a job interview like extremely. I'm extremely hardworking, which sounds stronger than I'm really hardworking. Let's review some common adjectives that you're going to use, and for all of these adjectives, you're going to use the verb to be and then list the adjective. I'm extremely hardworking, committed, trustworthy, honest, focused, methodical, proactive, a team player. For a team player, you can't use an adjective. You're simply going to say, I'm a team player. You're not going to say, I'm extremely team player. That doesn't work. I'm a team player. Now let's talk about some specific skills you should highlight in your interview. Now the following skills are rated as the top 10 skills that employers want. Of course, the skills are specific to your industry, but you can take this as a general list of skills that would be useful to highlight during the interview. And to talk about these skills, you can say, I have. And for an adjective, you can say, I have advanced, I have superior, I have excellent, and then you list the skill. I have excellent time management skills. I have superior communication skills. I have advanced adaptability skills. The other top 10 skills are problem solving, teamwork, creativity, leadership, interpersonal skills, attention to detail, and work ethic. For work ethic, we have a very specific adjective, and that's strong. I have a strong work ethic. So this is the specific expression for work ethic. I have a strong work ethic. So let's say you want to show off your communication skills. I have superior communication skills. Now let's say the interviewer wants to know why you're interested in this specific position. You could say, I'm looking for an opportunity to further or to develop my X skills. So your project management skills, your teamwork skills, your financial analysis skills, whatever the specific skill is. You could also say, I'm looking for an opportunity to gain experience in, and then you can talk about a specific field, industry, or sector. In the IT industry, in the project management field, in the marketing sector. You should absolutely have a conclusion. Don't just say, thank you for your time. You should leave them with a really strong impression of your skills and your ability to complete the job and be an asset to the organization. So you can say, I believe that, I know that, I'm confident that my extensive project management skills would make me a valuable asset to your company, your team, your organization. Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, the movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. And I look forward to the opportunity to contribute to your goals. Of course, you should take this and adapt it to your specific industry or role, but you absolutely want a strong conclusion statement to impress the interviewer. Now let's move on, and you're going to learn how a native speaker records their voicemail message. A voicemail message is so important because what if the person is calling you to offer you the job, you don't answer, they hear your voicemail message, and it sounds really unprofessional. That could cause them to not offer you the job or a client to not do business with you. So this next section will make sure you have a professional and natural voicemail message. So here we have Sophia. Let's take a look at her voicemail message to see what information we should include. So here's her message. Hello, you've reached Sophia Sanchez, Senior Project Manager at Google. I'm sorry I missed your call. Please leave me a message and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you. Now, let's look at this message line by line to see what kind of information we should provide. Okay, so our first line. Hello, you've reached Sophia Sanchez, Senior Project Manager at Google. Now notice I started with hello. You can of course start with hi. We definitely are not going to start with hey. No, that is too informal for this situation. Now, both of these are acceptable. Keep in mind, hello is slightly more professional. However, hi is slightly more friendly and welcoming. So the choice is yours depending on what tone you want to convey, but both of them are professional. Okay, and then we have you've reached. So this is the standard. It will always be in the present perfect. By now, you're well aware of the present perfect. You've reached. And this is the standard verb as well. To reach someone, you've reached. So this doesn't change. Now you have the option if you want to say you have reached. And like I said, you may notice that English speakers in their voicemail message will choose to not use contractions. So whether you want to use you have or you've, either is fine, but is going to be with the verb reach. So you've reached, and then I recommend giving both your first and last name. If it was your personal voicemail, you might only give your first name. But in a professional context, I would include your first and last name, but not your middle name. So only first and last, not your middle name. Okay, and then notice we have our job title. Now, I separate it here with a comma because a comma tells me to take a pause, which I'm going to do. So notice how I would read this. You've reached Sophia Sanchez, Senior Project Manager at Google. So I take a brief pause between my name and my job title. So here, whatever your job title may be, graphic designer, software developer, receptionist, whatever your job title is, it would go after your name, separated by a brief pause. And then at with your company. So here at Google, but whatever your company is, you would just put your name. Okay, I'll read this one more time. Hello, you've reached Sophia Sanchez, Senior Project Manager at Google. So that's how I would say it. That's what I mean by a warm but professional tone. Now, in everyday English, if I'm speaking with my friends, I would be a little more enthusiastic, which I'm not going to do. So I'll give you an example of being very enthusiastic, which I don't want you to do. If I said, hello, you've reached Sophia Sanchez, Senior Project Manager at Google. That's too enthusiastic. We want warm and professional in our tone. Okay, now let's look at the next line. I'm sorry I missed your call. Now here, the verb to be, we generally always put it in a contraction, so it would sound a little awkward to say I am sorry, simply because native English speakers always put the verb to be in a contraction. So here I would stick to the contraction. I'm sorry I missed your call. So this is a pleasantry that we include. There's alternatives. You could say, I can't take your call at the moment. I can't take your call at the moment. So this is an alternative. So this could be, option A, option B, but you can also include this, I'm sorry, for this one as well. So you could say, I'm sorry, I can't take your call at the moment. That's another one. And notice here, just at the moment. So that means at the present time, an expression of time. Or we can have a option C. And again, you could include I'm sorry in front. I can't answer your call at the moment. So here, what's the difference between these two? Yeah, just the verb. So take or answer. Either one of them is acceptable. Or we can have an option D. I can't come to the phone right now. I can't come to the phone right now. And this right now, these two could be interchanged. So I could say, I can't come to the phone at the moment, or I can't answer your call right now. So those can be exchanged. And then you can put I'm sorry in front of all of them. Now, why do we put I'm sorry? It's just a pleasantry. It's to express that you wish you were there to talk to the person. So it's just a polite thing that we generally include in our message. Okay, the next line. Please leave me a message and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. So here's our standard information. Please leave me a message. That's just a polite thing to say. And all, so here I'm using a contraction. Of course, this is I will. And why am I using the future simple here? Yeah, because I'm making a commitment. That's why I have it in the future simple for a commitment. And I'll get back to you as soon as possible. So here this as soon as possible, this is an expression of time reference, and there could be alternatives you could include here. Okay, but this get back to you, that's a pretty standard expression. Now let's look at some alternatives. So notice it starts the same. Please leave me a message and I'll return your call as soon as possible. So here instead of saying get back to you, is just return your call. Now, I wouldn't say that one is more formal than the other. You might be thinking return is a more formal verb than get back to you, but I wouldn't say that because get back to you is just a very common expression in English. Okay, so we can have our option A, our option B, and let's see. Okay, so instead of as soon as possible, you could say as soon as I can, for example. So you have this different option here that you could change. And another time reference, within 24 hours. So within, it's giving the final deadline. So if this is 24 hours later, so it's from the moment you called and then you count 24 hours. And within is any time from now until 24 hours later. So that's within. And why might I say within 24 hours? Well, you're giving the expectation that the person can hear from you shortly. And certain industries might have standards for how quickly they respond to client requests or how quickly they respond to customers. And because of that, you might want to give the person calling the idea that they can expect to hear from you within a certain time frame. Okay, so different alternatives here. And the next line. So notice how I end with just thank you. I don't say goodbye. It is not common in voicemail messages to end with goodbye. We generally end with just thank you, but it would be possible to say have a nice day or have a great day, for example, just a pleasantry if you'd like. Now let's cover a topic that many students get confused with, and that's the difference between revenue and income. Both of these are terms that are used in every business environment, and you need to know them. Let's do that now. So what's the difference between revenue and income? First of all, you only need to know this if you own a business or if you're interested in business topics. Because if you're an individual who works for a company, if you're an employee, you're employed by a company, all you need to be concerned about is income. Revenue does not apply to you, okay? But you might be interested to know about the revenue that your company generates. But an individual does not generate revenue. A company generates revenue. So just keep that in mind. So for an individual, let's say you work for a company and you're just concerned about the money in your pocket as an employee. What is income? Income is how much money you make from all sources. All sources, okay? So what does that mean, all sources? Well, let's say that you are a full-time employee okay? And let's say you have a salary and you make $75,000 a year. But in addition to your full-time employment, you're also an artist and you like to paint in your spare time. But twice a year, you go to art shows on weekends and you sell your art. You don't consider this a job because you love painting. It's just a hobby of yours, but your paintings are really wonderful and people want to buy them. So you go to these art shows and you sell your paintings twice a year. And from those art shows, you make $20,000 from your art. So your income is not just the money you get from your employer. Your income is all sources of money that you receive. So of course your employer is probably going to be the most important income source, I imagine. But if you have any sort of hobbies that you generate money from, even if you have a garage sale and you make $1,000, technically that's still your income. You sell a bike and you make $100. You would include that in your total income. So your total income is the money you make from all sources. Now, let's go back to the concept of revenue versus income. But remember, this is something that only applies to businesses. Small businesses, large businesses, it doesn't matter. Any type of business. So in a business, revenue is the money generated from all sales. So let's say a company has 5 different products and each of those products generates some money, and then you add all of those together and that company generates $25 million that year. That's the revenue, the money generated from all sales. Now, what's income in a company? Income is the revenue, which we just learned, the revenue minus the expenses. That leaves you with the income. So let's say you generate that $25 million, but to do that, you needed to spend $10 million in advertisement. So your revenue is $25 million, but your income is your revenue minus your expenses, so your income is $15 million. Now, just in case you're wondering, that is also referred to as net profit. That's just a little bonus expression for you. You have already learned so much vocabulary in this lesson, and you're going to keep learning because I have a news article about Mark Zuckerberg that focuses on a business topic. Now, you are going to learn a lot of advanced business vocabulary naturally in context as we review this news article together. Let's do that now. First, I'll read the headline. Meta surges as ads bounce back. There are 2 things I want to teach you in this short headline. First, let's talk about surges. This is a verb. It's conjugated in the present simple with Meta. Meta is the company that Mark Zuckerberg owns, the company that owns Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, among others. Now, as a company, it would be conjugated as a subject as it, and that's why you see this S on the verb in the present simple. It surges. Meta surges as ads bounce back. Now, the verb to surge, what does this mean? To surge. This is a sudden and great increase. So when it says Meta surges, it's talking about its profitability, the money that the company earns. So Meta surges, there's a sudden and great increase. So sudden, it happened in a short period of time, and then obviously great in the quantity. Meta surges as ads. Ads, this is the short form for the word advertisements. Native speakers almost always use the short form ads, which stands for advertisements. Bounce back. This is a very useful phrasal verb. To bounce back, this means to start to be successful again after a difficult period. Now, we use this in different contexts. In this case, it's used in a business context. So you can imagine that Meta was successful, but then there was a difficult period. So for a business, that's when their profits, the money they earn, falls. So their profit was here, then it fell to some lower point, but then the company bounced back, which means their profit increased to the same level or greater, bounce back. So we use it with businesses. We also use this with health. So if someone is sick, we can say, oh, I hope you bounce back soon, which means recover soon. So you can use it in this business context, or you can also use it in a health context. Don't worry about writing this down because I've created a free lesson PDF that summarizes everything you're learning right now. So you can look in the description for the link to download the free lesson PDF. Let's continue. As I predicted before earnings came out, a prediction is when you make a guess or a statement about a future situation based on the facts you know now. So this person is making a prediction, a guess about the future, about Meta's earnings. Earnings means financial, the money that the company earns. You can refer to that as earnings, my earnings. So this right here is a noun. This is a noun. Now, of course, we have earn as a verb. So Meta earned a lot of money, to use a very simple sentence. So you could say Meta's earnings, to use the noun form, Meta's earnings were very high, or Meta's earnings surged, to use the verb that you now know. As I predicted before earnings came out, Meta not only had its second straight quarter of positive revenue growth, but it also exceeded expectations. Okay, before we continue, let's talk about this word here, quarter, because as you can see, we have it here, quarter, Q4, Q2. So you'll see this a lot in this article, and any business related, financial related article or news story, you will see this. So the calendar year is 12 years. So you can divide that into quarters, and you will have 4 quarters. In each quarter, there are 3 months. So we have Q1, which is quarter one, or the first quarter. And this is January, February, March. Now, I won't repeat this, but this repeats for Q2, Q3, Q4, and it's just a period of 3 months. So that is how a business divides the calendar year to measure their performance and analyze their earnings. And Q1, this is the short form. It represents quarter one. Now notice here, when you say the longer form, first quarter, you have to use the article the first quarter, because first is an ordinal number, and we always use articles with ordinal numbers. So I'll make a star here. Don't forget the. This is required grammatically. So now let's go back. Meta not only had its second straight quarter of positive revenue growth. So what does this mean? It's second straight quarter. When you have straight, when you're talking about quantity, it means continuous. So I could say, I have worked
for 10 days straight. I have worked for 10 days straight means that I've worked for 8 days continuously. So I have not taken a break in 10 days. So you can say, I've worked for 10 days straight. And again, here, straight, this means continuous. You can also put the word straight. I've worked for 10 straight days. And it means exactly the same thing. There's just a little bit of flexibility in placement. And again, that means 10 days in a row, which means continuous, 10 continuous days. So second quarter straight. So that means Q1 and Q2, or Q2 and Q3, or Q3 and Q4 of positive revenue growth. So the revenue is the money that they earn, and revenue is the money that they earn before they pay expenses. Okay, so revenue is the money that comes in, but before they pay expenses. But it also exceeded expectations. So an expectation, this is a prediction of how well you think you'll do. So maybe Meta expected to earn $100 million because it's a massive company. $100 million, that was their expectation. But if they exceeded it, it means they earned more than they expected. So they earned 110 or $200 million. But it also exceeded expectations with its first quarter of double-digit growth since Q4 2021. This is saying in Q4 2021, which remember is the last 3 months of the year, so October, November, December, that's Q4, October, November, December. In Q4 2021, it had double-digit growth. So single-digit growth would be 1 to 9% growth is single-digit growth because there's only one digit. So what is double-digit growth? I'm sure this is pretty easy for you. 10 to 99% is double-digit growth. It's obviously possible to have triple-digit growth or quadruple-digit growth. Possible. It would be great, I'm sure, if you're a business. So this is double-digit growth. So it's saying in Q4 2021, it had double-digit growth, and now it has also had double-digit growth. But the period between these two times, it didn't have double-digit growth. Let's continue. Here's my quick take on Meta's Q2. So let's take a look at this. Someone's take on something. This is a very useful expression. The expression is one's take on something. And this means one's opinion about a situation or idea. So your take is your opinion or your idea. So for example, it's very common to ask someone, what's your take on that? You might share an idea. Oh, we should go on vacation to Germany this year. What's your take on that? You're asking them, well, what do you think about the idea I just shared with you? What's your opinion? What's your take on, and then that being whatever I just said. Of course, you can actually provide what you just said instead of saying that. For example, what's your take on the Threads versus Twitter debate? Because this article is about Meta. Meta just created this new social media platform called Threads, which is a direct competitor to Twitter. So I'm asking you, what's your opinion on Facebook, Meta, now competing against Twitter? What's your take on that? What's your take on Threads versus Twitter? So feel free, if you have a take on that, feel free to share your take in the comments below. Okay, let's continue. With 2 straight quarters of positive revenue growth and the first quarter of double-digit revenue growth since late 2021, this is very repetitive of what we just learned, so you can review the explanation. I won't explain it again. Meta's year of efficiency is off to a strong start. This is a great expression as well, but notice when you're learning new expressions, you have to learn the entire grammatical structure. So here the expression is to be, our verb to be. Of course, our verb to be needs to be conjugated. In this case, the verb to be is being conjugated with Meta's year of efficiency, which as a subject, what subject would that be? Well, it's it. And I know it's it because my verb is to be as is, and that's the conjugation with it. It is off to a strong start. So here the expression is to be off to a X start. And then in this expression, X equals an adjective. It can be a positive or a negative adjective. And this just describes the performance of the beginning of something. So let's say you're in a new class. You're learning how to play guitar. You might say, I'm off to a great start. Great start. I already know 3 songs. So you're describing the performance of the beginning. And in this case, it's the beginning of learning guitar. It can be the beginning of anything. Our vacation is off to a rough start. A rough start would be negative. Our vacation is off to a rough start because our flight was delayed for 5 hours and then they lost our bags. So that's the start of your vacation and it's not going very well. So you can say off to a rough start. Let me write this for you. Here it is. Our vacation is off to a rough start. And then you can explain why. Our flight was delayed. They lost our bags. Our hotel was terrible. You can explain all the reasons why. Hopefully, that is not the real situation. Obviously, you want to be off to a great start, amazing start, wonderful start. Remember, you can choose any adjective you want to replace X. So Meta's year of efficiency is off to a strong start. If the company can continue this momentum into the next 2 quarters, that being Q2 and Q3 or Q3 and Q4, it will exit 2023 in a much better position than it entered the year. And that's how it's bouncing back. Remember, it was here, but then it went down, but now it's back. It bounced back. Let's continue. There's a lot of feel good about when it comes to Meta right now. There's a lot to feel good about. I was thinking that doesn't sound right. There's a lot to feel good about when it comes to Meta right now. So if you feel good about something, it means that there's positive feelings. And obviously because they are doing very well because they're off to a strong start. There's a lot to feel good about when it comes to Meta right now. It has been able to maintain decent growth. Decent, this is an adjective that means good, but not amazing. So if I say the food is decent at a restaurant, you know it's good, but it's not amazing. So if you ask me, oh, how was the movie? How was the food? How was the hotel? And I say, decent, good, but not necessarily great. Good, but not great. Decent. Good, but not great. To maintain decent growth in monthly and daily active users across both Facebook and its family of apps, and it has seen strong performance from Advantage, its AI-driven suite of ad automation tools. Remember, ad is short for advertisement. Native speakers almost always shorten this word, advertisement. Automation tools, as well as good momentum for advertiser demand on Reels. While its competitor Snap, I've never heard of Snap. Have you heard of Snap? I haven't. If you have, share in the comments. Clearly a competitor to Meta. While its competitor Snap has yet to emerge from its own advertising slump. Notice I said ad is short for advertisement. But here we have advertiser, who is the person advertising. And then advertising is the verb. But for advertisement, this is the one we shorten. Emerge from its own advertising slump. A slump, this is when there's a decline. So slump, visualize going down. And it goes down in terms of price, sales, or volume. In this case, it's advertising slump. It's most likely the volume, the number of people who want to advertise on this platform, on Snap. Meta has been able to successfully turn around its business. This is a great phrasal verb as well. When you turn something around, it means you take a situation from negative to positive. I wrote that definition here. Now, this could be a great one to combine with the expression off to a adjective start, especially when it's negative, because this expression is when you take something from negative to positive. So remember the example I gave was, our vacation was off to a rough start. And remember, you have your verb to be that you have to conjugate. In this case, it's conjugated with the subject, our vacation, it, and the time reference is the past. So this is the past simple. Our vacation was off to a rough start. Not good. So a negative situation, but we turned it around. So we took our vacation from negative to positive. And of course, you can provide more information on why it was negative and how you turned it around. So how you got it from negative to positive. So excellent expression that you can combine with the other one you learned. Let's continue. Meta still faces several challenges. However, it gets nearly all of its revenue from advertising, and we estimate that its share of the worldwide digital ad market, advertisement market, will fall to 20.1% this year from its 2021 peak of 22.7%. Okay, its peak of 22.7, when you describe something as its peak, we'll just think of a mountain, and the top of a mountain is the peak, right? And the top of the mountain is the highest point. So when you say the prices peaked at X number, then that means that's the highest the prices are expected to go. And then after that, they might fall. So here, the market will fall to 20.1. So at this time in 2021, the market was at 22.7. By saying it's the peak, is saying this was the highest point and they don't expect it to go higher. This was the peak. So from this, you have no place to go but down because you're at the top of the mountain. So just visualize the top of the mountain when you think of peak. So the highest. It's facing significant competition from TikTok and Amazon. And while Meta may be talking less about the metaverse these days, it is still determined to make the metaverse a reality. And the massive losses in its Reality Labs division, so I guess this is the name of the group within the company that works on the metaverse. The Reality Labs division, they work on metaverse, are adding up. So the losses, the obviously financial losses, they're adding up. So adding up, this is a phrasal verb that means accumulating. So you have this loss here, this loss, this loss, this loss. And then if you add them up, you have a total amount that is obviously a lot bigger than the individual amounts. The company also faces incredibly tough competition in generative AI. I'm not too sure what generative AI is. I'm sure there are students watching this who do know. A lot of probably people in the software development engineer world. So feel free, let me know what generative AI is. Artificial intelligence, that's AI, but I don't know what generative AI is, including from OpenAI and Google. 4, these things will weigh on Meta in the second half of the year. So remember, the first half of the year would be Q1, Q2, and the second half of the year would be Q3, Q4. Let's take a look on weigh on. When something, these things, the article previously mentioned, when something weighs on someone, Meta is a company, so someone or something, a company, it simply means that whatever those things are making you worried or unhappy. So to weigh, just imagine something physically is weighing on you. It's bringing you down in terms of your emotions. For example, my upcoming IELTS exam is weighing on me, is another way of saying is making me worried, making me unhappy because you have a lot of nervousness around that exam. Hopefully not, just an example, but that is something you could say. And I know a lot of students have told me that. These things will weigh on Meta in the second half of the year. And remember that second half is Q3 and Q4 combined. But thanks to the momentum of a better than expected Q2, it will be in a stronger position to face those challenges. So the company expects to have challenges in Q3 and Q4 because of this competition from other companies and how the losses of the metaverse are now adding up. But because it had such a great Q2, it was off to a strong start, it won't be as severe. The consequences of these losses and the competition won't be as severe. So that's why it's in a better, stronger position to face those challenges. And that's the end of our article. So what I'll do now is I'll go to the top and I'll read the article from start to finish. And this time you can focus on my pronunciation. Meta surges as ads bounce back. As I predicted before earnings came out, Meta not only had its second straight quarter of positive revenue growth, but it also exceeded expectations with its first quarter of double-digit growth since Q4 2021. Here's my quick take on Meta's Q2. 1. With 2 straight quarters of positive revenue growth and the first quarter of double-digit revenue growth since late 2021, Meta's year of efficiency is off to a strong start. If the company can continue this momentum into the next 2 quarters, it will exit 2023 in a much better position than it entered the year. 2. There's a lot of feel good about when it comes to Meta right now. It has been able to maintain decent growth in monthly and daily active users across both Facebook and its family of apps, and it has seen strong performance from Advantage, its AI-driven suite of ad automation tools, as well as good momentum for advertiser demand on Reels. While its competitor, Snap, has yet to emerge from its own advertising slump, Meta has been able to successfully turn around its business. 3. Meta still faces several challenges, however. It gets nearly all of its revenue from advertising, and we estimate that its share of the worldwide digital ad market will fall to 20.1% this year from its 2021 peak of 22.7%. It's facing significant competition from TikTok and Amazon. And while Meta may be talking less about the metaverse these days, it is still determined to make the metaverse a reality. And the massive losses in its Reality Labs division are adding up. The company also faces incredibly tough competition in generative AI, including from OpenAI and Google. 4. These things will weigh on Meta in the second half of the year. But thanks to the momentum of a better than expected Q2, it will be in a stronger position to face those challenges.
You're doing amazing. Let's keep going. And now you're going to expand your vocabulary with more expressions. And at the end, there'll be a quiz. Let's talk about due diligence. Due diligence. Have you heard this before? Due diligence is the concept of doing very thorough research or investigation before making a decision. For example, before signing the contract, make sure you do your due diligence. And remember, due diligence, that's simply the research and investigation before signing the contract. So that's the decision you're about to make, the decision to sign the contract. Do your due diligence. Now, don't be confused here because the verb I just used is do. You do due diligence. Do is the casual verb. You can also use a more formal verb such as conduct due diligence. For example, before you accept the job offer, you should conduct extensive due diligence on the company. So you should research the company, you should investigate the company, and you should do that thoroughly to make sure you're making the right decision. So you can do due diligence or you can conduct due diligence. Now let's talk about a win-win situation. This is a situation in which all parties benefit. You win, I win, it's a win-win. For example, subscribing to this YouTube channel is a win-win situation. You win because you get to watch all of this amazing content to help you improve your English for free. And I win because by subscribing, that tells YouTube that this is a popular channel, a popular video, and YouTube will recommend it to more people. So it's a win-win situation. So make sure you subscribe, comment, like, share this video with your friends for that win-win situation. In a business context, you should also be asking yourself the question, how can I make this a win-win? You don't have to add the word situation. Native speakers will commonly drop it. How can I make this a win-win? If I ask my boss for a promotion, how can I make that a win-win? If you can make it a win-win and you can explain the reasons why your boss will win and you will win, well, then they're more likely to give you the promotion. And if you think it's a win-win, then put that in the comments. Jennifer, it's a win-win. Subscribing to this YouTube channel is a win-win. Jennifer, it's a win-win. Put that in the comments. Let's talk about to break the ice. When you break the ice, you initiate a conversation and you do that for the first time. This is used in both social settings like a party or a business setting like before a meeting or a conference. And when you break the ice, it's so you can have that initial conversation and get rid of that awkwardness when you're at a party or a meeting and you don't really know everyone there. So that's why at the beginning of a meeting or a conference, they'll often have some activities planned simply to help you break the ice. Or your boss might say, make sure you break the ice before you pitch them the product. So you don't want to start the meeting by saying, this is my product, you should buy it. You want to have some conversation first. You want to break the ice. Our next expression is to close the deal. This is when you finalize and secure a business agreement. So it means everything is complete, it's a done deal. So your boss could ask you, did you close the deal? They want to know if they've signed the contract and they're officially a customer. But maybe you reply and say, not yet, they're still doing their due diligence. Remember, you do due diligence. And then you can question, how can we make this a win-win situation so they'll want to close the deal? Now let's talk about cutting edge. This is an adjective that's often used to describe products or entire companies. If something's cutting edge, it means it's at the forefront of technology and innovation. You might say, I love working for a cutting edge company, a company that's always at the forefront, the very top of technology and innovation. Or you could say the research team is known for developing cutting edge technology. So they develop technology, but it's cutting edge. It's at the forefront of innovation and technology. Our next expression is in the pipeline. When something is in the pipeline, it means it's being developed or planned. So you might ask a company or a team or even a person, do you have any projects in the pipeline? And you're asking them if they have anything that's currently being developed or planned. Are you working on anything new? Do you have anything in the pipeline? Or you might say, let's meet tomorrow to discuss how to finalize everything in the pipeline. Because remember, the things that are in the pipeline, they're in progress. They're currently being developed. They're not final yet. And when they are, hopefully they're cutting edge. I love this next expression, to hit the ground running. This is when you start a project or task with a lot of energy and enthusiasm. And I personally always hit the ground running with new projects and tasks. I also love when my students hit the ground running. For example, Sherry just joined the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium program. She just joined the Finally Fluent Academy and she hit the ground running. So she started the program with a lot of energy and enthusiasm. She already started reviewing the lessons. She joined our private community. She's submitting exercises for feedback. She's interacting with the other students. She hit the ground running. Now let's talk about the idiom to put all your eggs in one basket. Have you heard this before? This is when you rely on only one strategy or one idea. So if your eggs are in one basket and you drop that basket, all your eggs will break, right? Because of that, we commonly use this expression in the negative. You shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. So if a friend tells you they want to invest all their money, not just some of their money, all their money in one single stock or investment strategy, you might say you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. Or you could say, it's always good to have multiple projects in the pipeline so you don't have all your eggs in one basket. Because if one of those ideas in the pipeline fails, you have other ideas. So that's always a great idea. Let's talk about to be a team player. This describes someone who works well with others in a group. What about you? Are you a team player? Put it in the comments if you are. I know many people have difficulty with this. They have difficulty working with others in a group. So be honest, are you a team player? I could say, I love working with Julio. He's such a team player. Or I could say, Michelle's extremely smart and well qualified, but she's not a team player. So I don't think she's ready for a management position. Because if you're in a management position, you need to be a team player. So don't forget this very valuable skill. Let's talk about to raise the bar. When you raise the bar, you take your standards or your expectations and you raise them. So you have higher standards, higher expectations. I could say that Apple raised the bar on what a cell phone can do. Before Apple, our expectations for cell phones was about here. Now our standards and expectations are up here. And that's because of Apple, in my opinion. Or you could say their products are cutting edge. They've really raised the bar when it comes to home security equipment. So they've raised the expectation or standards, but specific to home security equipment. So are you ready for your quiz to see how well you know these business expressions? Here are the questions. Hit pause, take as much time as you need, and when you're ready to see the answers, hit play. How did you do on that quiz? Well, let's find out. Here are the answers. Hit pause, take as much time as you need to review them, and when you're ready to continue, hit play. Amazing job. So how did you do with that quiz? Share your score in the comments, and now you're going to learn professional phrases to negotiate in English because of course you need to know how to negotiate. Let's get started. To negotiate. This is when you have a discussion with someone in order to reach an agreement. For example, I negotiated with the seller for a 10% discount. Notice grammatically, you negotiate with someone and you negotiate for something, a discount. You could also say we negotiated over the price or on the price. So here you negotiate on or over something, the price, the terms of the agreement. So how about we negotiate right now? You could say, Jennifer, I'll subscribe to your channel if you upload more videos. Good job negotiating with me. So put let's negotiate, let's negotiate, let's negotiate. Put that in the comments. Now let's talk about negotiating the prices of goods and services, what you most commonly negotiate. First of all, these items are usually non-negotiable. Items at brand name physical stores like Walmart, IKEA, or shopping malls in North America are usually non-negotiable. Sure, you can try to negotiate, but don't be surprised if they say no or are confused because you're negotiating at Walmart. But don't worry, because there are many items that are usually negotiable in North America. More expensive items like real estate, cars, furniture, jewelry, artwork are almost always negotiable. Services like home renovations, landscaping, or consulting are usually negotiable. Or goods and services at independent stores or non-physical stores. For example, street vendors, booths, kiosks, or souvenir shops. Have fun and try to negotiate. First, let's talk about asking if a price is negotiable. This is a great place to start. You can ask, is there any room for negotiation on the price? Any room for negotiation? Is the price flexible? Now for this one, you'll get a yes or no, but you can ask, how flexible is the price? So you're assuming the answer is yes, and you just want to know to what degree. How flexible is the price? This is a good one. If you want to be less aggressive, you could say, do you have any sales or promotions that I should know about? So you're letting the person know you're trying to get a discount or a lower price. Similarly, you can ask, are there any discounts available? One of my favorites is, what's the best price you can give me? You could also say, what's the lowest price you could give me? Then the person knows, oh, you came to negotiate. Let's say you know a item is negotiable. So let's review some phrases for negotiating prices. Whatever phrase you use, my best advice is always try to provide a reason why you should get a discount, why the person should negotiate with you, and make it a win-win for both parties. Then you're more likely to get a yes. If I buy two, can you give me 30% off? Another tip, always ask for more of a discount than you expect. So if you would be happy with a 10% discount, we'll ask for a 30% discount. Notice the grammar here. We have if plus subject plus present simple, followed by can plus subject plus base verb to form the question. Let's say you're buying a car. You could say, if I buy this at full price, can you give me free maintenance for 1 year? Now, free maintenance could be worth more than a 5 or 10% discount, so that's a great way to make it a win-win. If I pay cash, can you give me 15% off? In North America, 10 to 15% tax is added to the sticker price, the price you see. Tax is not included. So negotiating 10 to 15%, the amount of the taxes, is a great place to start. Here's a nice win-win. If I give you a great review on TripAdvisor, can I get this for $100? So you let the seller know what price you want to pay. Another way to make it a win-win is just compliment the seller. This is beautiful, but it's out of my budget. Would you accept $250? You could also use will you accept.
Oh, Pamela, it's beautiful, but it's a little out of my price.
Would is for possibility and will is for certainty. With negotiating, it is more common to use would. Would you accept? Would you give me? You can also use would you be willing to, which I know is a longer structure, but it's very common. Would you be willing to accept $300 if I recommend your store to others? Pay attention to this sentence structure. Would, subject, be willing, infinitive. And then next we have our if clause. If, subject, present simple. Now let's review some phrases to say that something is non-negotiable. Maybe you're the seller and you can use these phrases, or you're the buyer, but you need to be prepared when you hear these phrases from the seller. Generally, sellers will not be offended if you try to negotiate unless you try to offer them an extremely low price that is just offensive. But they'll be friendly and probably say something like, "Sorry, I'd love to help you, but our prices are non-negotiable. Our prices aren't negotiable." Notice there are two different phrases: to be not negotiable or to be non-negotiable. They mean the exact same thing and both are very common. Here's a very natural one. "I wish I could help you, but my hands are tied." This is an idiom.
Sorry, buddy. I wish I could help you. My hands are tied.
My hands are tied. This means I'm unable to act or decide because of external forces. So if the seller says this to you, "My hands are tied," then most likely the seller doesn't have the authority to give you a lower price. They just work at the shop. They don't set the prices. They just sell you the item. Someone else controls the prices. "My hands are tied." This is a very useful one. How about this one? "Sorry, I don't have any wiggle room." Wiggle room on the price. That's fun to say. Wiggle room. I don't have any wiggle room on the price. Wiggle room represents the ability to change or flexibility. So if you don't have any wiggle room, it means you don't have any flexibility. So it's another way of saying, "My hands are tied. I'm unable to do anything about the prices." The seller might say, "Our prices are already the lowest they can go." This is the seller's way of trying to reassure you that you're getting a good price and at the same time saying they're not willing to negotiate. So it's a powerful phrase. The seller might say, "If I could, I would. If I could give you a discount, I would give you a discount. If I could, I would." Now, implied in this is, "But I can't." But most likely they won't say that. "If I could give you a discount, I would, but I can't." That's implied. It doesn't have to be said, but that's what this means. So you tried to negotiate. The seller said no. So let's talk about some phrases for you when you want to stand your ground. To stand one's ground, this is when you maintain your position, your beliefs, or your opinion, especially when you're opposed. So if you stand your ground, it means I said I want a 10% discount. I'm not willing to buy this without a 10% discount. That is you standing your ground. And often this is required to be a successful negotiator, although it can be quite uncomfortable. You can say to the seller, "I understand. I understand your hands are tied. I understand you don't have any wiggle room." Whatever the seller just said, I understand. But that price isn't in my budget. That price is out of my budget. So you can use to be within one's budget and then just make it negative, or you can use to be out of one's budget. They have the same meaning. And if you stand your ground, it is possible that the seller will offer you the discount. They just wanted to know how serious you were. You could also say, "In that case, I'll have to pass." In that case, the case being that you don't have any wiggle room or your hands are tied. Again, whatever the seller said. In that case, I'll have to pass. When you use have to, it sounds like a forced obligation. And pass means you're not going to buy the item. I'll pass. I'll pass. I'll have to pass.
I'll have to pass.
Unfortunately, I can't move forward at the current price. So move forward is to complete the next step, which would be to purchase the item, but you can't. Unfortunately, I can't move forward at the current price. Please contact me if the price changes. This is another way you can open it up and try to encourage the seller to keep negotiating with you. It's too bad. It's too bad we couldn't come to an agreement. However, I appreciate your time. So it's too bad, this is something negative. I appreciate your time, that's positive. So we use however to connect the two opposing ideas, the negative and the positive. However, I appreciate your time. Have a great day. As a note, make sure you end your negotiations on a positive note by saying something nice. I appreciate your time. Have a great day. Because you never know when the seller's opinion or position may change, and if you're polite, they'll be more likely to negotiate with you. You could say, I'm sorry we couldn't work this out.
Sorry we couldn't work something out.
When you work something out, it means you find a solution to a problem. The problem being, what I want to pay is less than what you want to receive. I'm sorry we couldn't work this out. And then add thanks anyway to be more polite and end on a positive note. Now that you know all this amazing vocabulary, let's move on and read a news article together. And this article is about negotiating your salary. Let's get started.
First, I'll read the headline. Got a job offer? Now it's time to negotiate. We're talking about negotiating, a very important skill, especially when it comes to a job offer. So first, let's take a look at this question. Got a job offer? Got a job offer? This is very natural. This is something a native speaker would say. However, it's a short form. The full sentence would be, do you have a job offer? Do you have a job offer? Native speakers will often replace have with got. So what we're doing is you're just deleting the auxiliary verb and the subject because it's not necessary to understand. And then you're changing have to got a job offer. Now, you could also use got as the verb and then use the auxiliary verb have. Have you got a job offer? But in American English, this is more common. Do you have a job offer? And then this is extremely common for a native speaker. Here's something that native speakers commonly say every single day. Got a sec? Got a sec? Do you know what this means? It means, do you have a second? A second meaning a period of time. So it's just a casual way of saying, do you have some time? So if I need assistance, I can say, got a sec? Can you help me complete the report? So got a job offer? Do you have a job offer? Now it's time to negotiate. So let's start the article. Millions of people are quitting their jobs and finding new ones in what has been dubbed the Great Resignation. So here, to quit, just to make sure you know, this is when you permanently leave your position and it's your choice to do so. I quit. I'm permanently leaving this job because I don't like it and I want to find a different one. Here the expression is to be dubbed, and this is when someone or something is formally or officially called something. So for example, I saw earlier this week that Taylor Swift has been dubbed Person of the Year by Time magazine. So Taylor Swift has officially been called Person of the Year. She has received this title, but she's received it from someone specific, Time magazine. So this is the context in which you would use dub as a replacement for call. We certainly don't use it to introduce ourselves with our name. Perhaps Taylor Swift could introduce herself as, hi, I'm Taylor Swift. I've been dubbed Person of the Year by Time. She could do that to talk about her official title, but she wouldn't do that to introduce her name. Let's continue. If you're looking for a job, you've got the advantage. So here, this is another replacement. You have the advantage. So you could use either one, have got, or simply you have the advantage. The advantage means the best conditions for success. This is commonly used in sports, but it can be used in other contexts as well. And there's an expression that we say the upper hand. So the advantage can also be called the upper hand. You have the upper hand. So let's say there are two sports teams and one team is playing in their home city. That team has the advantage. That team has the upper hand because all the fans will be cheering for them and supporting them, and they've practiced on that exact field. So they have the upper hand, they have the advantage. And if you've received a job offer, it's now time to negotiate. Now, of course, negotiating is very culturally specific. In North America, it's expected that you would negotiate a salary position. So a salary meaning you get a set amount per year, $80,000 per year. But for hourly positions, you can negotiate them, but it's not as expected as a salary position. It would be very common for someone to say, no, the hourly rate isn't negotiable, but that salary position is almost always negotiable. What about in your country? Share in the comments if it is common or expected to negotiate your job offer, the salary in your job offer. Share that in the comments. While salary tends to be the major negotiation point, so that's what I just talked about, salary, that's how much you make per year, it's not the end of the conversation. So by saying it's not the end of the conversation, it means that there are other opportunities to negotiate beyond the salary, So that means more than the salary. There are other benefits and perks that can be flexible as well. So a benefit could be sick time, vacation time, or a bonus. And then a perk is something additional you receive that is more unofficial. So maybe you get a free lunch every single day. That could be a perk. So you don't have to make your lunch and you don't have to pay for lunch. Or you get a free Metro Pass or a free parking spot. That could be a perk. So there are more unofficial things, but those are flexible, which means you can negotiate them. So I wrote those examples of benefits and perks for you. Now I wrote flexible. Another way is negotiable. So to negotiate, negotiable. Now you could also say non-negotiable, which means it cannot be negotiated. It isn't flexible. So the employer might say the hourly rate is non-negotiable, which means you will not receive any higher than advertised. The hourly rate is non-negotiable. But then you might say, how about the benefits? How about the perks? Because remember, there are other things to negotiate, at least in North America. Again, please share how negotiation works in your culture in the comments. I think it would be really interesting to know. First, stay mum on pay. You might be wondering about this. Mum, what does this mean? In this context, to stay mum means to stay silent. So don't talk about pay. Be silent, stay mum. Now we have an expression where we use this more commonly, mum's the word. So here's the context. Let's say you're planning a surprise party for your mom, and you might tell your mom's best friend or coworker, remember, the party for my mom is a surprise. So you're reminding that person not to say anything. And then the person can reply back and say, don't worry, mum's the word, which means don't worry, I won't say anything about the surprise. I'll be silent. I'll be quiet. Now, I used mom specifically because mom in North America is, of course, short for mother. But I want you to notice that the pronunciation is slightly different here. Notice my mouth. Mom. But here, mum. It's more of an unstressed mum. Mum's the word. So don't say mom's the word. It's not mom, mother, it's mum, mum, mum's the word, mum's the word. So if someone shares a secret with you and they say, please don't tell anyone, you can say, mum's the word, to reassure them that you won't say anything. So first, stay mum on pay until the time is right. Recruiters often ask for a salary figure. If a recruiter, of course, is a person who finds employees for a company. So companies hire recruiters to find workers for specific job openings. Recruiters often ask for a salary figure early in the hiring process. So perhaps you submit your application and before they schedule an interview, they might reply to your application and say, oh, what are your salary expectations? What are your salary expectations? But this advice is to stay mum, so not provide that. And a salary figure, a figure is when you give a range. So a low point and a high point. So you might say, between 50 to 60. 50,000 to 60,000. Of course, that's salary annual. Between 50 to 60 a year. So I wrote that here, and notice that you can summarize 1,000 with the letter K. So 60K is 60,000. But try to avoid giving a number. So remember, stay mum on pay. Now, avoid is a gerund verb, which is why you have giving in ing. So I see a lot of mistakes with this. Remember, avoid plus gerund. But try to avoid giving a number. So that's why mum's the word. The right time to bring pay up, so to bring something up is when you talk about it. So the right time to talk about pay is at the end of the process being the hiring process, after you've received an offer. Let's continue. You never start to negotiate in the midst of an interview. So in the midst of something means in the middle of, a very common way. Notice the pronunciation, midst of, in the midst of. You never start to negotiate in the midst of an interview, said Victoria Medvec, author of Negotiate Without Fear. You're not negotiating before they've said, we want to hire you. So that makes sense. You wait for them to offer you the job before you negotiate. That makes perfect sense. The key is having a well-researched salary number. So here, the key to success, the key to negotiating properly, successfully. And you don't need to include that information because it's implied. So you could just say the key is, but it's short for the key to success. So if we're having a conversation about the best way to become fluent and the context is established, I could simply say the key is having a great teacher, because you already know that the context is the key to success, the key to successfully learning English is having a great teacher. And hopefully I'm that teacher for you. Now, if you agree with that the key to success is having a great teacher, put that's the key, put it in the comments. That's the key. The key is having a well-researched salary number. Websites like Glassdoor, PayScale, and LinkedIn can help provide a sense of what people in similar roles, experience levels, and markets are making. Once you have a consensus of what is a reasonable amount. Okay, a consensus. This is a general agreement. So if you look on these different websites, these 3 websites, and 80% of people say that a marketing director should make $100,000 per year, well, then that's a consensus. You don't need 100% of people to agree for a consensus. Is just the majority, the general majority. So 80%, in my opinion, that would be a consensus. Some people might think a lower number would be a consensus as well. So once you have a consensus, the majority of people agree of what is a reasonable amount, come up with 3 different numbers: your wish, want, and walk. Now, when you come up with something, in this case, 3 different numbers, it means that you determine those 3 numbers. You establish them. They're firm in your mind. But notice this is a 2 preposition expression: to come up with something. Come up with 3 different numbers: your wish, want, and walk. Wish, so this is now explaining what this number is. So wish is a high specific number you open with. So notice here they said a specific number. So that is not a range. Remember, a range was between 50 to 60, but they say a high specific number. So if this is your range, a specific number on the high end would be $58,500 per year. That's very specific, and it's on the high end of that range. Wish is a high specific number you open with. Want is the actual target that is a little lower. So the target means this is what you actually want. So although you said 58.5, you actually would be happy with 56. Because again, this is culturally specific, but negotiations in North America for salary, they go back and forth. So I say a number, but then my employer is going to say something a little bit lower. So I need to start high because I know my employer is not going to accept that number. They're going to say something lower. So my actual target, my want, should be lower than my first number. And walk is the point in which the deal is no longer good for you. You have to set that in advance. Now, it's called a walk because the expression is to walk away from a deal. When you walk away from a deal, it means you reject that deal, you end that deal. Let's review this sentence. The interview went well, but they only offered me $52,000, so I walked away, which means I said, no, this negotiation, this conversation is over. I reject your offer. Now, notice I put away in brackets because native speakers will commonly drop it and simply say, I walked. Now, another example, they offered me $52,000. Should I accept it? And then maybe your friend, your husband, a former colleague might say, no way, you should walk away. Again, a native speaker will probably drop it, which means you should end the negotiation. You should not accept that deal. So walk is the point in which the deal is no longer good for you. You have to set that in advance. So again, that was you have to come up with, determine, establish. We can add here set. So you have to come up with that. You have to set that in advance. In advance means before the meeting. If an annual bonus is part of your compensation package, so your compensation package includes everything that you get: your salary, your bonus, your benefits, your vacation time, your sick time, your parking spot, your free lunch. All of those items are your compensation package. So it's everything that you receive by working for a company. If an annual bonus is part of your compensation package, make sure to look at the percentage and whether it's prorated based on the time you joined the company. Prorated means it's calculated according to specific time allocations. So in a year, there are 12 months. So let's say your bonus is $12,000 per year, but is prorated. you will get $1,000 for every month that you work in the year. So if you join the company in February, you only missed 1 month, which means you'll get $11,000 for your bonus. But if you join in January, you missed half the year. So you'll only get $6,000 for your bonus that year. So this article is saying that could be an area of negotiation. And if a bonus isn't included in the offer, you can try to negotiate one. So maybe you try to negotiate the salary and they say it's non-negotiable. So you might try to negotiate a bonus, which is considered a benefit. And that would be part of your total compensation package. So remember, your compensation package is the total of everything you receive, including your salary, benefits, perks, and anything else. That's the end of our article. So now you're ready to negotiate if you get a job offer in North America, because maybe it's not considered acceptable to negotiate in your country. Again, let me know in the comments. I'm really interested to hear how negotiation works around the world. So now what I'll do is I'll read the article from start to finish, and this time you can focus on my pronunciation. So let's do that now. Got a job offer? Now it's time to negotiate. Millions of people are quitting their jobs and finding new ones in what has been dubbed the Great Resignation. If you are looking for a job, you've got the advantage. And if you've received a job offer, it's now time to negotiate. While salary tends to be the major negotiation point, it's not the end of the conversation. There are other benefits and perks that can be flexible as well. First, stay mum on pay until the time is right. Recruiters often ask for a salary figure early in the hiring process, but try to avoid giving a number. The right time to bring pay up is at the end of the process, after you've received an offer. You never start to negotiate in the midst of an interview, said Victoria Medvec, author of Negotiate Without Fear. You're not negotiating before they've said, "We want to hire you." The key is having a well-researched salary number. Websites like Glassdoor, PayScale, and LinkedIn can help provide a sense of what people in similar roles, experience levels, and markets are making. Once you have a consensus of what is a reasonable amount, come up with 3 different numbers: your wish, want, and walk. Wish is a high specific number you open with. Want is the actual target that is a little lower, and walk is the point in which the deal is no longer good for you. You have to set that in advance. If an annual bonus is part of your compensation package, make sure to look at the percentage and whether it's prorated based on the time you joined the company. And if a bonus isn't included in the offer, you can try to negotiate one.
Now let's keep expanding your vocabulary with 15 C1 words to sound smart in the workplace. A fiasco. This is a noun, and it means a complete failure or collapse. Now, you describe something as a fiasco. For example, you could say the conference was a complete fiasco. So, a complete failure. It means the exact same thing, but side by side, failure is more of a beginner word. It's an everyday word. Fiasco instantly makes you sound smarter. Number 2, to revel in something. This is a phrasal verb, so pay attention to the sentence structure because you need the preposition in. To revel in something. This has an easy meaning. It simply means to really enjoy something and take pleasure in something. For example, he reveled in his new promotion. He really enjoyed his new promotion, took a lot of pleasure from it. Now, just an important note. Don't confuse the pronunciation with the very common word reveal. We're talking about revel, revel, reveal, revel. Notice the difference in the vowel sound. This is a short sound, revel, long sound, reveal. He reveled in his promotion. Number 3, to anticipate. This is a verb, and it's used when something is likely or probable. So I could say, we're not anticipating any problems tonight. So it's simply saying we're not expecting. Problems are not likely or probable. Now remember, this is a verb, so notice the verb tense. We're not anticipating any problems tonight. This is in the present continuous. It's simply negative, but in the present continuous. Number 4, to exaggerate. This is when you make something seem larger, more important, better, or even worse than it actually is. A lot of people do this with their problems. They might have a problem that's like this, but then they exaggerate it and they make the problem sound like it's this. They exaggerate. Another example, I could say, that was the best meal I've ever had. I'm not exaggerating. So notice, I'm using this in the negative to say I'm not making it better than it actually is. It is that good in reality. Now we can use this with any adjective. That was the worst meal, the most expensive meal, the most unique meal, the spiciest meal. I'm not exaggerating. Number 5, to indicate. This is a verb, and this is when you make something clear or you simply show something. We use this a lot in research studies and reports. For example, the study indicated that the cost of gold is increasing. So this is just a smarter way to say the study showed that the cost of gold is increasing. Number 6, inevitable. That's a fun word to say. Inevitable. Inevitable. This is an adjective, and it's when something is certain to happen. So 99.9% going to happen. Now, we generally use this with negative outcomes. If you keep eating fast food, a heart attack is inevitable. Number 7, to intend. This is a verb, and it's used when you have a plan or a purpose. We commonly use this in the negative to say we don't have a plan or purpose. For example, I could say, I didn't intend to hurt your feelings. That wasn't my plan. That wasn't my purpose. I didn't intend to hurt your feelings. Now, you can definitely use this in the positive. For example, we're talking about C1 vocabulary. This video is intended for advanced students. Number 8, mistaken. This is an adjective, and it's when you're simply wrong. You're wrong in opinion or judgment. So I could say, I thought the conference started at 9, but I was wrong. You can say that. Or why not sound smarter and say, I thought the conference started at 9, but I was mistaken. So just that one small change will instantly make you sound smarter. Number 9, noticeable. This is an adjective. It's when something is easy to see or recognize. For example, I could say there's an improvement in your speaking skills. Now, improvement is our noun, so I can modify our noun with our adjective noticeable and say there's a noticeable improvement in your speaking skills. It makes your sentence more complex, and it makes the improvement sound better because it's easy to see or recognize. Number 10, substantial. This is an adjective. This means large in size, value, or worth. For example, her promotion was substantial. It was large in value or in worth. Cha-ching. Number 11, to absorb. You need this one because when you absorb information, it means you understand it fully. So when you start a new job, you might say there's so much information to absorb. So you have to get the information, but then you also have to understand it fully. So hopefully you're absorbing all of these new words. Number 12, to compel. This is a verb. It means to force someone to do something. For example, he was compelled to wear a suit to work. This means he didn't want to wear a suit. Somebody, most likely his boss or the company as a whole, forced him. They compelled him to wear a suit. Number 13, drastically. This is an adverb. It modifies a verb. And when something happens drastically, it's in a severe and sudden way. For example, everyone's daily routine was drastically changed in 2020. We went from going out every day to staying home every day. Our routines changed drastically. Number 14, excessive. This is an adjective and it means too much. The amount of sugar in processed foods is excessive. It's too much. And finally, to generalize. This is a verb and it is used when you say that something is true all the time, when in reality, it isn't. It's only true some of the time, perhaps. For example, many people say that Canada is cold all the time. You can't generalize about the climate in Canada. We have a very diverse climate. It can get really hot and it can also get really cold. You are doing such a great job. Now let's end this masterclass with vocabulary that students commonly confuse, and that's the difference between employ, employee, employer, and employment. Let's start with employ. This is a verb, to employ. As a verb, of course, you need to conjugate it with your subject and your time reference. Now, what does this mean? Well, you need to understand the sentence structure of how to use this verb, and someone or something like a company, someone employs someone. And when that someone or something like a company employs someone, that means that they pay them money in order to do a job. That's what the verb employ means. So let's look at some examples. I could say the company employs many students. Now you might think, oh, as a student, they're just doing the work for free, volunteer work, or it's an internship. No, it can't. If you use the verb employ, there has to be money exchanged for work. So it isn't volunteer. Even though that person is a student, if a company employs them, it means they're paying them to do that job. Another example, you could commonly ask, how many people does your company employ? How many people work at your company and receive money in order to do that work? Employee is a noun. You are most likely an employee. If you work for someone else, whether it's a company or an individual, and that someone pays you money to do the work, then you're an employee. You're not an employee if you own your own business and you work for yourself, for example. But if you work for someone else or a company, of course, then you're an employee. Now, as an example, you can ask the same question that we asked before using the verb employ, but this time you would ask, how many employees? How many employees does this company have? Because now we know an employee is someone who works for a company and is paid for it. How many employees does this company have? Or another example, the company gave every employee a raise. So every person at that company that receives a paycheck, they gave them all a raise. All their employees got a raise. Now let's talk about employer. I hear many students, even sometimes native speakers, confuse employee and employer. All you have to remember is employee is the one getting paid and the employer is the one paying the employee, okay? So employer, that's like the boss, it's the company. Employee is the one working at that company and getting paid. So you can think of it as an employer is a company or a person that employs people, now that you know what the verb employ means. For example, let's say you're going to a job interview and they say to you, HR says to you, we need a reference from your last employer, your last employer. So the last person or company that employed you. Notice how all these words are coming together. Or another example, and this could be a great example sentence that you leave in the comments below, so just think of this. I could say, the government is the largest employer in my city. And this is true because I live in the capital, and in the capital, that's where all the official government business takes place. So the government is the biggest employer in my city. The government employs the most people. So all the employees, they're employees of the government. See how it's all coming together? Now, finally, employment. Employment, you can think of this more as a concept. It's a noun, and it's the concept of paying someone for work. But as a concept, we talk about it more in terms of employment rate, employment level. So you'll see employment used in a lot of statistics. For example, they might say right now, employment levels are at an all-time low. So employment levels, that's simply the number of people employed. Now also, they talk about unemployment. Unemployment, of course, are the people that are not employed, are not working for money, right? So you might say the unemployment rate in my city is really high. So the number of people who are not employed.
Amazing job with this masterclass. Did you like this lesson? Do you want me to make more masterclasses? If you do, put masterclass, put masterclass in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And I have another masterclass that I know you'll love, so make sure you watch it right now.